So we went right back and looked at why is this person committing criminal behaviour, and we really wanted to look at just the pure economics behind it to start with. So we've got rational self-interest and rational choice theory. So basically that would say that someone who wants to commit a crime does a calculation, and if it's beneficial for them, then they'll pursue it. But behavioural economics will sort of say, wait a minute, we've got optimism bias here, so that they will weight it wrongly because they don't think they'll get caught. So then we made this sort of an assumption from there that in the long run, restorative justice fits with a sort of rational, motivated agent. But we're sort of seeing that diverge, and we wanted to understand that. So we think that there's a hot-cold empathy gap. There's hyperbolic discounting, aversion to ambiguity, and also some risk-seeking. So from that, we've worked out that the individuals we're targeting, restorative justice is their deliberative preference. So just to sum that up, so behavioural economics, our role today is really just not to get people to just refer, it's to nudge people away from a life of rejection, because that's the ultimate cost of a criminal conviction. Our scope today is really just on the defendant, the defence solicitor and the prosecutor, and we're really trying to take that antisocial act and develop it into a pro-social act, so an imperfect altruistic act. We've got a few tools that we'll use today. So the first one is this behavioural cube. So the classical nudge sits down there, so behaviourally informed, targeting and instality, and it's liberty preserving. So that sort of takes off from we're ignoring conservative coercive paternalism that's featured up here. Point D wasn't named, so we called it a Pigovian nudge. So it's just a nudge that targets an externality opposed to an internality. Just to give you a little bit of grounding, that hash there represents Thaler's urinal, salient target in the Amsterdam urinal. And we've all got this metric here just to tell you how, if we think it's a good policy that we're developing, spicier the better, and if it costs, if it's cheap. So the first ones we're looking at is priming the defendant. So what we're really trying to work on here is looking at that first perception of restorative justice, and then looking at the trying to make sure that they feel like they're part of it, somewhat their idea. So these posters we got from an original, like they're from a police station. So we developed some posters that could also be flyers, but we just have them because we wanted to be more salient than that, obviously, because that one there is terrible. So this is our first one. So we're working on there, that's a lifestyle and we're loss aversion. Next one, that's more altruistic, and it'd be very salient against these posters. We've got the sort of same thing going on with a little bit more information. That's loss aversion. That's the scarcity heuristic and also fear of missing out. And that is identity that we're playing on there. So then that fits there with... I was thinking we could get a celebrity sponsor, maybe an NRL player. There's plenty of them who we probably could do with a bit of restorative justice. And it sort of sits there, so we're pretty close to a classical nudge. It's somewhat spicy, and it's very cheap. Right, Paige is going to take us on for the next part.
Okay, so our next intervention was to rebrand restorative justice. The goal here was to reduce any inertia felt by the offender around the name restorative justice and make it a more approachable concept. We felt here that the terminology creates some ambiguity, as restorative is not a word that most people would use in their everyday language. Instead, we want to create a fluency heuristic by changing the name to something more approachable, such as the above. We've got the public mediation, thoughtful justice, those ones. We personally like the options that include mediation, because they're both more inviting, but they also give both the offender and victim some clue as to what the process is going to entail, and they know that it's going to be that conferencing. And this intervention is shown by the /0 here on our behavioural cube. It's pretty feasible. We can probably get it to work very well, and it's a little bit more expensive because you have to rebrand everything that you currently have. But once that's implemented, it'll just be a normal cost that's already a part of the program. Next, we have both a nudge and a boost. First, a boost, for those who don't know, it works on developing a new heuristic, and it also teaches them how to apply that heuristic. So it's here in their heuristic repertoire for the defence lawyer. Here we also, like a lot of groups, used a letter for both interventions. They come into both. And the boost comes through here. Up here is where we've got our boost. So we're teaching that defence lawyer that when they hear their offender, their client say sorry, they're going to think restorative justice. And that's going to be their first thought when they've got an offender that is remorseful of the actions. Then next we've got our peer effect and the chart here, which we used from beta. We're using peer effect to take advantage of conformity and lawyer ego to nudge them into matching their peers' referral rates. And then finally, we've brought in the combination of Queensland Government and United Nations to take advantage of the authority heuristic, which will strengthen the argument for engaging with this information. We didn't think Queensland Government by itself was enough of an authority, so we brought the UN in as well because they were listed in the brief. And then that one is shown by the pi symbol on our behavioural cube.
So in the brief, a problem that we recognised with the referral process was the workload of the prosecutor that impacted their ability to refer matters to diversion or restorative justice. Our idea to solve this was to streamline the referral forms that are used by the prosecutor to complete the application to the restorative justice program. To do this, we placed the eligibility criteria at the top of the application document to be completed by the defendant and their lawyer. This streamlines the process for the prosecutor as they are not required to request this information, and it is immediately clear if the client is eligible. We provided a space on the document for the defendant to write a short message to the victim, drawing on the insight that by making the defendant identifiable to the prosecutor and victim, they may exhibit a high level of altruistic behaviour. As you can also see, there is a space for the defendant to sign to acknowledge their agreement to participate in the restorative justice program. The objective of this intervention is to have the offender pre-commit to the program, which we believe will motivate them and increase the likelihood of them completing the program. The defence lawyer is required to complete Part 1A of the forms before handing it on to the prosecutor. This is using the Zeigarnik effect and sunk cost fallacy to nudge the prosecutor as the form is already partially complete, and we'll acknowledge the limitations of our policies as well. Thank you.
Well, thanks.
Do you want to answer that?